and welcome to another Fairy Stamper video. This is Tracy, and today I'm going to show you how to make this haunting. So I'm just going to briefly show you the background and then we'll get into the meat of it. So I'm going to grab my splat box here and I'm going to line it with a paper towel. And just to kind of absorb, and this is a brand new one. Believe me, at the end of things, I've replaced these multiple times. But I'm going to lay my piece of cardstock, and this is watercolor cardstock. I'm going to lay it in there, and I am going to grab some fossilized amber distress spray stain, and I'm going to coat the whole thing. And what I'll do is I'll actually dry this because I'm going to be putting another color on as well, but I want them to go on one at a time because they're different mediums and I don't necessarily want them to blend too much. So I'm just going to dab it off and get it dry here. And I mean, it dries pretty quickly, but boy does it make a mess if you leave it wet. So I'm just going to dab off that excess with a paper towel. You can see I've been messing with this stuff all day. And next thing I'm going to go in, I'm first going to get it nice and dry again. And I'll be going in next with a brusho, and the color is sienna, but I want to make sure this is fully dry first. And you can see I've got a pile of backgrounds behind me. This is what I do when I run out of creative ideas. So I'm going to grab my brusho in the sienna, the burnt sienna. I'm just going to sprinkle it on. And I probably, in hindsight, should have probably done this in my splat box, but I didn't. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with water and get that brusho moving around. What I'm trying to do is make sort of a fiery effect. And so I lift it up so it can start dripping down. And it's okay, I wipe off the edges, and those are going to be trimmed off anyway, so I'm not really worried if they're too light. But I do wipe up, and then I'm going to start to dry those brushos down on here too, so I can continue the work. And I love that color. It is messy though, I'm telling you. So when the paper will curl when you're drying it, but it'll start to flatten out. See how it just all of a sudden decides to lay down? I just love about that. And I'm going to wipe up because I'm going to be flipping it over, and I don't want it to sop up any of that ink that's left there on my surface. I'm just going to make sure it's completely dry and get my stuff out of the way here so I can move on to the next step. And you want to just kind of shape your paper and make sure it's flat, and you can move it around, check for dryness, dry it off a little bit more, also use the dryer to kind of fix the shape of the paper. And just make it bend to your will. Now I'm going to take this stone castle, and I'm going to take the trees, and I'll list them in the description box below. And I am going to first make a mask with the stone castle. I'm using Gina K's masking magic. I actually made this video before I discovered a new way to do masks. So I'm going to use that, and I want to use an ink that's not going to smear when I'm ink blending. So I decide that I'm going to probably use the Memento ink. But I start looking through my inks, and I change my mind, and I go with an archival because it is permanent, as long as you wait for it to dry. Because the problem that happens with me is I think it's dry, and then I start touching it, and then next thing you know, I've got black ink everywhere. And those are just some of the backgrounds that I've been fooling with. And I'm going to go ahead and clean off my stamp here. Get it put away because I don't need it for right now. I will need it again. And I'm going to go ahead and let this dry, and then I'm going to fussy cut it out. And I'm sorry I'm off screen here cutting it out. But I cut out the major parts, and then I tend to like to go into the small parts with my knife on a cutting mat. But just want to cut around all those edges there. Boy, I'm way off camera. Probably because I need to have it so close to me. There we go. So you can see I've got part of it cut. Now I'm going to take it, and I'm going to take my knife and trim out those little pieces there. You want to make sure you're using a really sharp knife. This is my finger blade knife. I love this knife. It just allows so much control, and I'll tell you that I've never cut myself using it. And then I just trim off anything I can with scissors. It's a delicate business making masks. My new way of making masks is so much better because the paper doesn't bend on you and stuff like that. Well, it does, but it I don't know, it's resilient. If you accidentally cut some, there's not a chance of ripping it unless it's really super close. But I do want to get this castle, pretty well cut out. I'm not worried about the full black flags because you can ink blend over them, it doesn't matter. So I'll just snip those off, doesn't matter. I'm just going to continue cutting this out here, and if I could speed it up any more, I would. So it's coming up on Halloween, and I don't really celebrate Halloween. My kids are grown, and there's just nobody trick-or-treats in our neighborhood. We live in a city. I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and we have a historic part of town, and everyone that lives in the historic mansions, they make a really huge deal out of Halloween, and they just decorate like crazy, and all the kids go down there. Now, I don't know if we'll have Halloween this year. I know we didn't last year. I mean, Halloween came and went, but there wasn't any, major trick-or-treating or anything like that. But I used to take my kids down there when they were young. They're, of course, grown and gone now. I can't even believe I've been here 14 years. That's crazy. But it is super cool. There's just millions of kids running around down there in their little costumes and going up to these spooky mansions because they're all like sort of antebellum type houses. Some of them have, just massive rooms and windows and castle looking. It's really pretty cool. I like to go down there just to look at all the houses. And then we also have Halloween events at our botanical gardens. And I like to go down there every once in a while. They have, Christmas and all that kind of stuff for their, they light up the gardens with light shows and, all kinds of lights around all of the plants and trees and flowers. It's really beautiful. Okay, so we got our mask cut out. That was a task, wasn't it? Hey, you can totally skip that part if you want to, but I didn't. So what I did was I stamped that mask down, and I must have not accidentally not recorded that part, but I stamped it down just in the black ink. And then I'm stamping down the trees, and I'm going to stamp down multiple trees. And I just want to make sure they get good and black. And it looks like I'm using the VersaFine in Nocturne, the VersaFine Clair in Nocturne with these. I've got it off screen as usual. I'm not sure what's going on right there. Oh yeah, I'm trying to clean something. I don't know why. So I pre-record these and, plan on editing them right away, but sometimes I forget that I needed to edit that one, and so I'm trying to pull this from memory because I did this back in July probably. I'm just going to keep doing these trees and in this flamey, fiery background until I've got all the trees stamped out. And again, I'm making the trees go all the way across, over the castle, everything. I like these little trees. They're pretty versatile. You can use them for Christmas, Halloween, fall, summer. I mean, they appear to be kind of evergreens. I could have probably put a spooky tree in there, but I chose to get these because I like the thickness of them, and yet you can still see what's behind them. So I'm just going to move my tape and keep moving my tree back and forth, up and down, until I'm happy with my tree placement on all of the bottom. Just want to wipe up if you get too much excess there, because you don't want it to stamp down onto your paper. I'm going to give that one a double stamp. And I'm going to wipe it, and you wipe it off each time, so if you, when you lay it down, if you don't like the placement, you're not committed to it. I'm going to go in with the smaller tree from this set, just for some variety. And it's brand new, I haven't used it, so it's very, very sticky. And just want to make sure my paper didn't move. Doesn't seem to have. So we're good, but it's going to take, it'll take, you know, quite a few stampings to kind of break in your new photopolymer stamps. But these are good high quality stamps. And, you know, there are some that I use religiously. I love, you know, like the dragon ones and stuff like that. And I don't know why I didn't put a dragon in this scene. I probably should have, but I ended up with a bat. So, and Fairy Hugs doesn't have a bat stamp yet. Well, we'll have that conversation. They have a lot of other animals, so, you know, you get a lot of variety. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just fill in here with the smaller tree in a couple of spots. It looks like eyes peeking through the trees. I'm going to go ahead and pull that off and just kind of wipe off my stamping platform a little bit, sort of. And there I've got my main images and my very dirty fingers. And I'm going to find a mask that I've made, I use this all the time. It's just a circle cut out, a piece of paper. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay down my castle mask now. And you want to get all those little bits and pieces off of there. As you can see, the little flag will still stick out and it won't change. So anything that was solid on there, I didn't feel the need to cut out. But I'm going to be using this Wilted Violet Distress Oxide here. And I'm just using some removable tape, which, just a word of caution, sometimes with the removable tape, it'll leave some debris or whatever behind, and you have to remember to clean that off if you're going to be coloring in the center portion. Otherwise, it doesn't color properly. But I'm just kind of going around the outside edge here, and then I'm going to spread it out some as if it were cloudy. And we've got some purple clouds because, yeah, I mean, how often do you see a castle in the trees with an orange sky? So I'm just kind of, you know, spreading that out a little bit with a clean brush, and then I'm going to take off the mask. And there we've got our moon behind our castle, and I'm just going to kind of go in and touch up on those edges, get them blended in. You make some little purple clouds throughout with just some, you know, tapping motions. Okay, and I'm happy with that. Want to watch your fingers too, and fingerprints. I do want to lighten up my moon a little bit, so I am going to take my white Ranger White pigment ink. I think it's Glacier White, and my brush that's dedicated to white, and I'm just going to fill in kind of the center portion of that moon and then blend it out. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I am going to lay my mask back on there real quick so I don't accidentally white out my castle. I'm just going to blend that through, and it's by no means going to turn it white. Oops, see, there I go, sticking my fingers, my black fingers into there. So we've got it a little bit gray now, which is fine. Again, this scene isn't meant to be realistic at all. So now we've got our scary, spooky sky back behind our flamey castle in the trees. And I really do like this card. I love the way it turns out, but it's kind of crazy the way that it kind of came together. So I am taking my black Posca pen and making a stab at kind of darkening back up that the edges there and the little flag. And I end up using my Sharpie because my Posca does not, it's, you know, it's difficult sometimes with certain kinds of pens when you're working over distress oxide or other kinds of pigment inks, because the pen kind of wants to stick to the pigment and then stop working. Kind of sucks up that pigment, I think. But now I'm going to take and ground my stuff. I do need a ground, and I'm just using my torn paper method here. And I'm going to go ahead and I think I'm going to grab the seedless preserves. Nope, I'm going to grab the Versifine and Acorn. I know I put seedless preserves on here somewhere. And just kind of create a scenery, a grounding, so to speak. And then I'll do another one below it. And I start off on the paper and then rub down to the surface of the panel. Okay, working okay here. Just adding just a few little kind of hills and valleys here and there, just to kind of build up the scene. Now we're gonna take and go in now with the seedless preserves. I knew I was going to, and I'm just going to add a little bit more purpley color into this sky. Get some along the background of the trees as well, just to make it a little bit of a spookier sky. Like, don't go out tonight. Now I'm going to go in with my pen and I am going to highlight the areas that would be lit by the moon. And this does take some time if you're working on something like this. It's got a lot of detail to it, but it's well worth the effort because it does make it stand out. And no, don't do the rest of that flag, okay? Then we're gonna grab the treetops. And I'm not really using any rule here, I'm just doing them. Just trying to make them stand out some, here and there. And then I'm gonna go in and complete the castle, and it's sort of, yep, I made a mistake there. Well, it happens. I'm gonna just fill in the little windows as if there's lights on inside. I'm just making little dots. Okay. Coming together here. I want to glitter around the moon, so I'm going to use some of this Fairy Hugs glitter. And just to make that moon kind of stand out, I'm going to be using this little Quickie glue pen, and I'm just going to draw around the moon with it. See, even the Quickie glue, if you don't get it running really well, it will try and stick in the pigment and not actually roll out. It's almost like it clogs the roller or something. So I'm just making a kind of a circle around the moon with the Quickie pen. And then I'm going to glitter that bad boy up. There we go. And that really makes it stand out. I'm going to let that dry a little bit before I try and flick off any more of that glitter. There we go. I've just got a little brush I'm brushing it off with. So next I want to go ahead and give this a little bit of a trim here so that I can put it on a card base, and I am trimming it down to 4 by 5.5 with my decal trimmer because the decal is going to give it that added spook element. And when I start with my paper, it's usually 6 by 4.5 because I take my watercolor paper and I cut it in quarters, so I have lots of room to trim and play. And once you trim that down, the scene fills in a little bit better. And this is just a little vacuum I got from Amazon that I want to clean up some of that glitter with. before I go any farther, because I don't want glitter everywhere. It gets everywhere anyway. There's just no way around getting glitter all over everything. So I'm going to go in now here with the black soot and, you know, deepen down the edges here. Give it kind of a smoky feel. I'm just going to go all around the edges and edge up that decal edge, which looks really cool. And I want to make sure that I get all the decal black, because it is white paper, so I don't want that white core showing through. And go ahead and get this edge and get those, just kind of swipe my brush along and go ahead and get the top edge and swipe the brush. And I'll go ahead and clean up my mess there so I can move on to the next step. So what I want to do is, I believe that I want to go ahead and attach this to a black card base. Black seems fitting for Halloween. So I'm going to grab my black card base and go ahead and glue this down. And do I use glue on this one? Nope, I'm actually raising it up on some sticky tape or some foam tape. Just because the deckled edge looks really cool raised up. So I'm going to pull up the backing from the foam tape. And then I'm going to position that as straight as I possibly can. Yeah, I like it raised up like that. Now I'm thinking about the moon, and I want to add an embellishment here. So what I first think is I'm going to add some of rub-ons. But I start looking through the rub-ons, and I just don't see any that fit with what I'm trying to do here. So I'm most likely going to change my mind here. Yeah, no, I'm not happy with any of those. I have a bat that I cut out from on my Cricut machine probably last time I used it. And let me just find him here. He's a glitter bat. Yeah, so he's somewhere. You know how when you change your mind in mid-project and then you have to actually go find what you were looking for, but there he is. And I'm going to edge him up because I don't want the white paper core showing through. And carefully, because I'm going to knock most of the glitter off of there. And I'm going to place him right there in the middle of the moon. And do I pop him up? Let's see. Yes, we do. Okay. So I'm going to grab some of these pop dots and just lay them on the wings. You can see my little ghost down there that I almost thought about using. And I cut one of the pop dots in half so it'll go in the center and support that center of that bat. And I'm going to just go ahead and pop him on. Hey, thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing and leave a comment below. I'm more than happy to answer your questions or smile at you. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.